Hello and welcome to the Video Creator Show, where we talk the juicy details of how to succeed on YouTube. And what better way to do that than to talk directly to someone who has done it. RV Lifestyle is run by longtime journalists who love traveling North America in their motorhome, finding interesting people and places. Their channel currently sits at 171,000 subscribers and over 32 million total channel views. Today, I'll be speaking with Mike of RV Lifestyle to understand how it's possible to travel the gorgeous North American continent while making a more than comfortable living. But first, the Video Creator Show is brought to you by VidChops.com, an editing service that helps take the burden of editing off your back. Check out VidChops.com to see how you can save yourself tons of time and energy while taking your YouTube channel to the next level. Mike, how you doing today?
Hey, it's great to be with you, Grant. Thank you for thinking about us and asking us on the show.
Absolutely. So I'm always fascinated by channels that involve traveling. I feel like making videos on the go is like a dream a lot of people have, right? You kind of get this feeling of freedom while also being able to make a living and kind of reach people and share the adventures you're having. So I'm just curious, like, what led you to making this channel in the first place? Like, did you have this kind of desire to travel and then you were like, I want to share it with people? Was it more than that? Let's hear the origin story.
Well, none of it was intentional until the last few years. I spent most of my career as a journalist, and the profession of journalism, it changed dramatically after the turn of the century, and it became pretty silly and political and foolish. And I literally quit a 5-year contract and thought that I'd find something else to do. But I've always been a writer, a storyteller. I love technology. And so I found a few freelance gigs, but basically bought a small motorhome. And with my wife, we had been doing a lot of freelancing and traveling together. We just sort of set off. I wanted to revisit many of the places I visited as a journalist, but didn't really have time to explore. And we thought that a motorhome would be a great way to do it. It was almost, was it retirement, or were we just going to kind of reinvent ourselves and see what happened? And along the way, I just started writing a blog about our travels, and then I did videos as well. Many of my friends in the media saw those and shared them among themselves, and eventually a couple of big publications picked it up, and soon we had taken right off. And it morphed over the years into many other things. We started a podcast 420 episodes ago, and 420 weeks ago. I don't even know how many years that is now. I'd have to add that up, or divide it. But a podcast, the blog, we began to write travel guide books. We started a very active social media channel, and it just grew and morphed into a business. So I wish I could say I planned it, but it didn't. It just sort of it happened.
That seems to be not uncommon with YouTube. The lack of planning almost plays into it in a way. I think that's the beauty of it, right? Is you're trying but not too hard. You're just like, oh, I'm going to make some videos and see what happens.
I think I get asked a lot, and sometimes we do a lot of talking at conferences and stuff, and people say, well, how do I make a living on YouTube? And I think the first thing is you have to say, don't try to do that yet, because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of really hard work. And we watch, particularly in our niche, which is RV travel, we have watched over the years now dozens, if not over 100 people try to get into it, and they come out of the gate and they do 3 or 4 videos, or if it's a podcast, 4 or 5 episodes, and then it starts to drop off and they fade away. And most of them, if you're going into it thinking, I'm going to make money, you better go into it and also realize it's going to take me many years to really make money. So Uh,
Yeah.
I think that's true. The successful people would be doing this even if they weren't making money. I think that's
Hmm.
the delineator here about being successful or not. Do you really like what you're doing? Because if you do, that passion will show through, and you will get an audience.
Hmm. Yeah, it's surprisingly simple that way. I think there's even I remember in high school. This is kind of an interesting metaphor. There was people who they I was friends with them and I loved them, but it seemed they really wanted to be a musician, but they didn't really practice much. And it was almost like they liked the idea of being a musician more than actually being a musician. And the same thing really goes for YouTube. You know, it's like if you enjoy the process of making videos and sharing them, you're going to be way more likely to succeed in the long run because you can just kind of consistently keep uploading, keep getting better, keep enjoying it, not overthinking it. And then eventually, you know, you're going to be attracting people with your vibe, your energy, and your if you keep putting it out there, eventually they will come.
Yeah, it really is about a couple things about that, which is probably number one, but it's also about the niche that you have chosen. You really need to have a niche that has some scale. For example, when we first started, the brand of RV we had it was a road trek. It was a small, it's known as a Class B camper van. And that was the brand name of it, Road Trek. And my original name for the blog and then the YouTube channel was Road Trekking. That was a pretty clever name. But you know, that brand only had sold at the time we started 22,000 van users. And so as we started to do the stories, we were doing stories about places and the people we met and the interesting stories we came across. But that name that I had identified me as being sort of just devoted to that brand, even though we weren't. So when I changed the name to RV Lifestyle, which is really what it's about, it exploded. And it suddenly opened, instead of a brand that sold 22,000 units up to that time, I was now in a brand that appealed to potentially 11 million people who were
Mm.
active RVers. And I think it's the same thing, whatever niche people choose, they may uh, uh, kind of focus on something that is almost too narrow to have any scale. Uh, for example, you might do a story about, you know, just the restaurants in your town. Well, that's going to catch on with a very small percentage of people in your town, and you may get a little bit of business from it, but it's not going to be nearly as important as a niche that has bigger scale and is maybe about regional food or you know, even touring the country and finding different types of food. And then the other thing people do is they just sort of find somebody that they like and say, I want to do that too, and they try to copy them, and they don't have their own voice or their own
Hmm.
style. And I know in our case, it's we didn't ever start with trying to copy somebody. I just was trying to tell the stories we came across, and that's evolved over the years now to sort of our lifestyle and the things that we see and experience and review. But um, it's hard to plan. You can't plan for overnight success because it's very rare that that would happen.
Hmm. Definitely. So when you changed the name, did you also change your videos at all, or was it just the name that you
The
changed?
only change, no, the videos, in fact, you know, on our channel, you could still go back and find them. And the only thing that's different is you might hear, I used to do a sign off. You know, we always introduce ourselves at the end, you know, and do the pitch for, hey, give us a thumbs up. I used to use the phrase road trekking across North America. Uh, you know, we're Mike and Jennifer, my wife Jennifer, who's my co-host. Uh, but but that's the only thing that's any different. It's the same content, it's the same stories, but by choosing the wrong name, we unintentionally limited those who perceived us as being of interest to them.
Hmm. So during this time, was it like a massive change, or did you kind of just see gradually it slowly went up? Because sometimes people kind of have an exponential explosion, and sometimes you start to really see the progress, but it is still gradual.
It didn't really have, actually, if anything, it sort of, there was an initial drop. Now, my YouTube channel, by intent, is part of a number of different platforms we have. They're all sort of a funnel that leads back to our main blog. In this case, now it's rvlifestyle.com, but used to be roadtrekking.com. So when we changed that, there was a downtime when the algorithms and SEO and Google and rankings said, well, who's this rvlifestyle.com? And we were smart. We forwarded that domain to the new one, and eventually it all caught up. But what we noticed almost right away was people who owned different RVs were contributing more to our conversations, the comments on the videos, on our social media posts. We were picking up people who had fifth wheels, who had towable trailers, who had larger RVs than we had, even tent campers. All those I never had when I was sort of brand centric. But that's been now almost 5 or 6 years. And so that transition's long since gone. The thing that we have realized is that, and everybody says diversify, and that really is true when you are a content creator, because while our income, the YouTube is a huge factor in everything we do, it's not the leading source of income. And the leading source of income is the blog, advertising on the blog, and then the podcast, and then YouTube, and then our books and stuff like that. But the thing that YouTube does better than any other platform is it creates what Pat Flynn calls superfans. It creates a motivated community that really is interested and follows everything you do. So I think if we didn't have YouTube, I think we would take a huge hit on all the other factors that we have into our business. So that's the first thing I would say. And the other thing is get help. We reached a scale about 4 or 5 years ago where it clearly became a business, and running the business part of it took away from the content creation part of it. Here we're doing a blog about traveling in an RV and living out of an RV, and I had to spend several days a week, doing things like SEO research and keyword research and making thumbnails and learning new video techniques constantly to improve them, and then invoicing people and getting payments. And finally, I realized I had to get help, and that was a tough choice to make. But since we got help, we began to hire people. Everything changed, and now we're able to take advantage of things like the biggest thing we're noting right now is shorts, how popular YouTube shorts are. We've concentrated on those over the last few months, and several of them have quickly gone up to over 1 million views. And I think it's an area that a lot of YouTubers are ignoring, the popularity of shorts.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So I'm wondering how shorts have affected your long form content as well, because I've talked to a lot of different YouTubers about shorts. Some people feel like, they get 1 or 2 or 3 that blow up, but then they don't find that their audience who is watching those shorts also ends up watching their long form content. Is this not a problem that you have? It seems like you're clearly very pro shorts. So I'm just curious about your perspective on that.
Well, I keep track of our analytics every single day. That's one of the things that I think is really important as well. Right now, our channel is increasing by about 120 subscribers, new subscribers every day. And, depending on the time of year, sometimes it drops to 40 or 50. But since we started doing shorts, it's consistently been over 100 new subscribers a day. As we do this, we're about to go to 172,000 subscribers. Shorts, I think, have put our videos out there in front of a lot of people that never would have seen them before. And because of that, I was on a short that had 1 million views, there's, it's not 100 people have suddenly gone onto our channel and looked at other things and subscribed. So I attribute a lot of that growth to shorts. Our long term form videos, which are really three that we do every week. One live stream, which is essential, I think, in terms of bringing our community together every week. And then our podcast, which we just started doing a video version of that a few months ago. And that has really helped with our podcast subscriptions, both audio and in terms of YouTube audience. Um, but the long term stuff it seems to be doing generally better. And it's a little early to say because we've only been doing shorts for a few months now. But shorts is the only factor in there that I can attribute that to. That our new emphasis on shorts, and we're also doing reels and stuff on Instagram, and we're running shorts on Facebook as well. So shorts, I think, has been a big way to get us out into a new audience.
Hmm. Yeah, this is something I always tell people is essentially what you just said. It's a really great way to reach an entirely new audience. I think long form content is great. It's kind of you mentioned YouTube is good for creating super fans. I think long form content is where the super fans are made, and then short form is where it's an easy way to get attention. Essentially,
Yeah.
the algorithm is often promoting you to new people who otherwise never would have seen your stuff. They watch your shorts, then all of a sudden they're getting recommended your long form content. So it's organic advertising essentially.
That's
And it's
and
yeah.
Grant, you got it exactly right. That's exactly what it is. It's because when one of our shorts hits 800,000 or a million views, YouTube is now suggesting some of our long-term videos and those suggestions, and that's where we have seen a lot of traffic increase from the YouTube suggestions, and that's coming about because they want us to do more shorts. So um, it's a good point, and it's not a hard process to do. Many of our earlier long form videos can easily be carved up into several shorts as well. And so we've kind of got a machine going with my editor that's what we're trying to do is trying to release a couple of shorts every week as well.
Hmm. So speaking of the machine, you mentioned scaling up and kind of having other people do a lot of the work so that you can focus on actually living the lifestyle that your channel and your blog is based around. Can you tell us a bit about your workflow with that? Like, how many employees do you have? What do they do exactly? How did you find them? All that stuff.
Sure. The key employee for me is my content manager. And I found her. She actually had volunteered to be a moderator for me in my YouTube live stream that Jennifer and I do every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. She was a moderator, and I really appreciated her insight, and she did a great job. And we began to talk, and it turned out that this woman that on her own was volunteering this um, was an expert in social media. And so I hired her initially to help me out with Facebook. We quickly grew our page to, I think, about just under 500,000 likes. And then we built up our Facebook group now to about 150,000 really active users. And she was just awesome with that. We have not concentrated. My audience is the demographics are a little older. They're not as Instagram centric as younger audiences are, but we've built up Instagram too a little bit. But as I got to know her, we concentrated on the blog and finding the right keywords. I really spent a lot of time learning SEO, and I hired a writer, and then in fact, actually, at one point we had two or three writers, and we worked it down to one who's pretty much close to full time for us. And my content manager helps schedule the blogs with me. We use Asana to manage our team. We brought on a social media manager. Our newsletter has about 60,000 subscribers, and I have an editor for that we use. I hired a video editor who does all my thumbnails, helps with SEO on the videos, and also, I do all the editing, pretty much all of them, but he'll help with transitions and some of the finer production stuff that takes a lot of time. So it's a pretty good team. We start with the team meeting every Monday. Most of us are on that. We talk through what content we're going to put out over the next week. We talk about some of the things, the longer term projects we're going to work. We set up a calendar and deadlines. I spend then most of Monday editing and recording and getting the podcast that goes out on Wednesday ready. Send that off to my editor, to my video editor. Tuesday, I write a blog version of the podcast with show notes, and then then we usually will do our traveling and shooting Wednesday through Friday, and then on Sunday we do a live stream every night from wherever we happen to be, usually on the road, and then we start all over on Monday. It's a 7-day-a-week job. That's the other thing I'll say about this business. It's like the old journalism business because you have to feed the beast every single day. And people say, "Hey, shouldn't you be retired?" And I said, "Yes, I should be, but I'm having too much fun to retire." And we're probably working 60 hours a week, Jennifer and I, doing this.
Wow. So do you feel like this at any point cut into you enjoying your time traveling around in an RV? It sounds like before you started hiring out, that may have been the case.
Your video froze.
But has it been difficult to kind of enjoy the sights while trying to turn it into content at all?
Frankly, it did for a while until I hired the team. I found myself, and there are times even now that we'll get so busy that, for example, we also host meetups and gatherings around the country. We keep them we try to keep them to 50 or 60 RVs, which works out to almost 100 people. We just had one 2 weeks ago in Tennessee, and they take a lot out of you in addition to all the other content we're doing. So there are times when we get, wow, we're doing too much, or we think we might have to bring on another person or so. But that happens rarely now. But about 4 years ago, it was to the point that do I just drop everything and just do YouTube, or just the podcast, or just the blog, because I can't keep up this schedule. And that became a really contentious time. I would get up every morning feeling like I was behind the gun wherever we were. I'd need, when you're traveling, you spend 5 or 6 hours driving. Then you get to the location. You need to get your feet on the ground and understand what to do and where to go. And then by then the light is fading. It's dark. You start the next day, and then you got to be someplace else in 2 or 3 more days. So we were really, something's got to give, and it began to cut into our enjoyment. And we said, well, we wanted to this. The big thing is we suddenly clicked, and our mind said, this is not a hobby, this is a business. And if we are to succeed at a business, it's a business we enjoy, we love doing it, we have passion for it, but if we're going to succeed for it, we have to run it like a business. And that means, number one, delegating. Creators are the worst delegators in the world because we want our fingers on every single part of our baby. We made this. This is our baby. It's our passion. Nobody knows the story better than we do. Nobody knows, the ins and outs of what we experienced better than we do. And so we feel nobody can help us. And that's not true. If you have a good team, a good staff, you have to trust them, and you have to train them and work with them. They cost money, but I think our productivity, everything has increased, and it's the best decision I made to make it a business and bring on people to help us concentrate on what we do best, which is the content creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is the advantage of hiring people, right? Is you can actually focus on the things that only you can do. I think sometimes people aren't very realistic about what they can actually hire somebody else to do, like, SEO, scheduling, growing social media. And obviously, you do need to have somebody that you work well with who understands your voice. But ultimately, there are a lot of things that you can hire somebody for, and you kind of just learn to work with them. And the process can be tricky at first. I remember the first time I hired an editor. I hated the initial video they sent to me. And then, I sent them some notes, and then they fixed it up, and then I really liked the video. So it just it can be kind of anxiety inducing if somebody sends you something and you're like, oh God, this is my voice on a thing that I don't like. But it's, you can always fix it and kind of just slowly streamline the process. And that's what I try to tell people, is just kind of be patient. And try not to overthink it. Just, you hired this person, trust that they are right for the job. It might just be a matter of time before they really understand how to utilize your voice and talk or edit in a way that is comfortable for you.
Yes, absolutely. You do have to trust them and let go, and listen to them, because we all have blind sides, and uh, we tend to sort of just ignore our own blind sides. And if our employees and those who work with us are always a little shy in telling us stuff, and uh, my team is pretty good. They're saying, "Hey, you missed this." I did. You're right, and it can be a little humbling sometimes, but you have to run it like a business. If you're going to make a living at it, you have to run it as a business.
Definitely. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, most people I talk to here obviously have a big YouTube channel. Even some people have a website where they're selling a product or two. But you, with your website, rvlifestyle.com, it's a thriving website. You said you have a newsletter with 60,000 people. There's clearly a big community around here. Can you tell us about the development of your website and also how you're monetizing? Of course, you have ads on here, which are very well done, by the way. I've seen a lot of websites with horrible ads. They're just clean and non-invasive, and it's very well done. So can you talk about the development of the website and kind of how you came to build it to what it is now?
Well, the website is really what started it all out for us, because since I was a little kid, I've been a storyteller. I love to write. I love to take photos and video, and I've enjoyed technology, and there's no better outlet than a blog. So that was job one for us, is the blog. But it's evolved now to we have new content every single day. Every single day we have a major article. And I think that is the most important part from us. About half the traffic is discovered organically, which is right where you want it, a little
Yeah.
over half. And the rest is our referrals or returning visitors, which is also about what you want. But we have been really, there's so many other niches out there that are trying to do RV travel. So we have become really attuned to what our audience wants to know. And often it's not the stories that I want to tell. And that is a really hard test, but it is the test to be a successful business. Are you giving them what you want to talk about or what they want to know about?
Hmm.
And I got to confess, my initial years were just, I'm interested in this. I'm going to go do a story about this. And we found out that oftentimes our travel stories were the least viewed on the blog. We wondered why. And then we began to really look and see what it was people wanted. And they wanted more how to, they wanted more review type stuff of travel related technology or products. They wanted more of our experiences. And I was a journalist. I was learned that our experiences don't count. It's the story. Of course, that's not true of journalism at all anymore. But it was really hard for me to realize I needed to be more transparent about how we lived our lives out there when we were doing our RVing. So we worked more of that in. But I mentioned our social media and our Facebook group in particular. It occurred to me then, about a year and a half ago, when we were again looking at the demographics, because you need to really do a fresh look every year at your products and your platforms. Our social media group on Facebook is like audience research. It's the best focus group you can find. So we began to chronicle what were the questions and what were the comments that got the most response on our Facebook group. And so we began to realize that they're telling us on our Facebook group what they're interested in. And so almost every story now that we see that's on the blog is sent to us. It comes to us by way of what we see people are interested in on our Facebook group. Sometimes we'll even ask a question, and then we'll get hundreds and hundreds of responses. That's a great post. Real RVers giving their real advice about a question or a problem that somebody had. And so we take all of that and then we SEO it. We make sure that we have the right keywords for it, and write a deep and comprehensive, at least 1,000 words, more often than not 2,000 word article on it every day, every single day. And that has really helped. We've monetized the blog well. Thank you for saying that, because it's always how do you do it? We're lucky that we're on Mediavine as our main advertising source for the blog. It's hard to get in. You have to have a certain amount of traffic, and we just were brought into the Mediavine Pro aspect, where it's for bloggers who make over 6 figures a year, and that's helped. They serve up really good quality ads, and it works well. With that has come obviously more interest in our YouTube videos as well, and then we found several brand partnerships that we can do with YouTube, and then in the last year we have focused even more. We realized our podcasts, for example, they're all tied together. It's a YouTube podcast as well. But a year ago, it was an hour-long podcast with 5 commercials in it, 5 one-minute commercials. And, even that doesn't sound like much, but I just felt that it was overly long, and it was long because we had 5 commercials. So intentionally, we cut it back to just 3 or 4. And the time of the podcast is about 35 to 40 minutes most weeks, depending on the topic. And that made a big difference in the people who listen to the podcast. So that's kind of how we've balanced it all out between the different platforms. I tend to think of it as one. It's YouTube, the blog, social media, that there's just many different avenues people can reach us to consume our content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think diversifying is always a good idea, right? Because if you rely too much on one platform, if the platform has a sudden shift, then you could perhaps be out of luck. This actually happened to me with my channel, Treesicle. We were relying really heavily on YouTube and hadn't really branched out to Twitter or our own website or anything. And the adpocalypse of 2017 happened. I don't know if that affected you much at all. But when that happened, it was quite devastating. We had to really figure out how to pivot, and it, lesson learned. With new channels that we started, we were kind of able to be more intelligent about it. But diversification is huge. If for no other reason, for your own mental health, you worry less about certain fluctuations that happen that are completely outside of your control.
I think you're right. I wish I could say I planned this all, because this is all stuff, like you say, it's lessons learned. Because, even though we're all, this is all pretty well established, and we know what 10 years ago, nobody heard of a content creator. And the terms influencer, which is a crazy term. I'm not sure I like that term at all, but that was never there. So, there's no real textbook for what we're all doing here. And we need to constantly be reevaluating it and looking at the data that we get from our analytics. And And even that changes. I mean, I wish I could spend more time being a data geek because I think there's many things we could probably that we're doing that we don't have to do, and that we could do better if I was better at interpreting the data.
For sure. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, uh, you have a background in journalism, and I find with YouTube there's usually kind of a lead up to it, right? There's chapters of life that can end up preparing you for the weird world of being an influencer, content creator, whatever you want to call it. Do you feel like being a journalist in some ways prepared you for this? Like, did it give you a thicker skin, or you mentioned kind of always being on the clock? Clearly, you became comfortable with that. I'm just wondering about your background and how that fed into being online.
It's a mixed bag, probably mostly positive because I know how to tell a story, I know how to write a headline, I know how to edit myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the most important thing is I can work very fast because that's the world of journalism. I can edit fast. I mean, I would love to have a podcast editor, but nobody could keep up with me. I mean, I record my podcast the day before it airs, and to do a most of the people who use a podcast editor, there's just no way. Even my video editor sometimes can't keep up, and he works. He got my video that's coming out on Saturday. He got it a few hours. He got it Friday night, so he doesn't have a lot of time to work on it. But he's used to working with me, and it works well. So I work really fast, and I think that is an essential skill that anybody on YouTube or writing a blog or a podcast has to have. You have to be able to be fast. It's also taught me to understand the essence of a story and to be able to tell a story relatively coherently in analog 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Most YouTube creators, they don't have an idea what they're doing when you really look at so much of it. The good ones, the successful ones, listen to how they tell the story. It flows. And there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they often tie together. And throughout it are little gold coins or nuggets of information that appear every so often in the story to keep you hooked. So all of those skills I learned as a journalist, and that helped a lot. What I wasn't prepared for was this whole influencer thing, and really that started over that's relatively new for most of us in the last couple 3 years, where we have a deluge. I mean, I probably get 50 emails a day from people wanting to buy post on my blog or mentions in my video, sending you free products for reviews, which we don't do any of that. Unless it's a product that we really like and we can feel we can recommend it. So I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't also prepared for the business part of it, dealing with advertisers, being able to screen an advertiser. We took the first few, I mean, we couldn't believe it. People were offering us money to do what we liked, and I took everything that they offered at first, the first few years. And that's crazy because you have no credibility if everything you're writing about is a free thing and you're doing it because of that. So we don't. I mean, we have a form that we send out to most of them. It just says, no, sorry, we don't do any paid links. We don't do any paid posts. We are very selective about the advertising that we do accept from brands that we can recommend and that we use ourselves. I wasn't prepared to do pitch meetings. I still am not. I mean, I have a feeling I had an advertiser meeting this week. And okay, I probably shouldn't even share this. This is how amateurish I am, I guess. So everything was good. I gave him the rate for the thing. And I said, okay, here's the thing. We have a deal. My policy is I'm not an accountant. I don't have time to send invoices out every month. And I believe that if you're going to advertise with me, it's a long-term relationship. It's 6 months. And they were all good with that. but they wanted to pay monthly because that's their policy. They pay every 30 days. And I said, well, I don't have time to stop my travels or to remind myself and to write you an invoice every 30 days.
Yeah,
So
seriously.
I want it's 6 months in advance. And I think I lost them because of that. Everything else they agreed to. But but you know what? If I did it with them, I'd have to do it with the next person or the next advertiser. And then I'd have to have a day that I'd have to sort of stop what I'm doing and send out invoices. I know I could probably hire somebody for that, but that's that's kind of crazy to do. So uh, you know, I probably, if I have one more hire, it will probably be a business person to
Hmm.
help me with that kind of stuff. Because I think I lost that advertising because I never heard back from them after I said that. They were ready to go. They were that close. Yeah, but that's kind of the policy that we came up with. And again, I think we have to all be true to ourselves because I realized that that's something I hate is sending invoices out, and then you got to keep track of it and all that stuff. And so
Hmm.
every 6 months we renew or we go the separate way. And so far it's all worked except for this
Hmm.
advertiser.
So it sounds like most advertisers reach out to you. Is there ever a time where you like find a product and you're like, oh my God, I would love to have them sponsor the blog? Do
Um,
you ever reach out to people, or is it always just one way?
uh, it's pretty much all one way. It's a little bit different. I've had a couple of big manufacturers who have supported me and with RVs that we happen to like, and they support me through advertising. I'll tell you, in the initial days when I first started with Road Trek, they provided me a free RV to use, and
Oh my
that's a
God, wow.
very common practice among a lot of the influencers that are still out there. They get a free RV to use. We pay for ours. We made that determination about 4 or 5 years ago when this whole influencer thing, maybe not quite that long, maybe 4 years ago, the whole influencer, actually it's 5 years, exactly 5 years ago. I know that now. 5 years ago, this influencer thing was going, and we realized that if we are taking a free RV, I can't be honest about what's wrong with it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, um, and our readers should know that. And we told them that they provided us. That's the word everybody uses. But we made the determination. We bit the bullet and we bought one. And oh my gosh, it was hard. But then if you sell it every year or two, uh, you can pretty much flip them like a house. And the last 2 years, used RVs have been through the roof. So,
Really? Wow.
so we change our RVs about every 2 years, and we try to get a different brand so we can be familiar with different brands. But there's still, I'd say, many of those influences out there are riding around in free RVs that are provided by the manufacturers, and thus they really can't say anything negative about them. Not that there may be, but you can't be as candid as you'd like if you're getting something free. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? What I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Like especially if your channel is based around your RV and it's provided by a company, that feels like your foundation is it's held hostage is a very dramatic way
yeah,
of putting this, but you're kind of you can't be as free as you want to be because
yeah,
your whole brand and company is built on this thing that somebody else gave you, and
yeah,
you kind of owe them something.
yeah,
You almost owe them a debt
yeah.
of
And and and
good advertising.
and for those who do accept it, I mean that's great. It's okay, and I think they acknowledge that, and everybody knows that. But we just felt we could be and reach more people if instead of having just one brand of RV. So right now we have two. We have one we just bought in September, and then one fifth wheel, which is a completely different type of RV for us that we bought in April, and we paid for both of those, and we will probably sell them both in a year or so and get something else, another year or two. But then we'll have another brand to talk about, and we'll have more experience with that. So when people ask us about this brand or that, we'll have firsthand experience.
Hmm. Wonderful. So one thing I always like to ask people, what does the before and after look like? So before you got into having an online presence, your life was a certain way. and then after it really started taking off, so when you felt like it started succeeding after you changed your name, all the views started flowing in. What does the before and after of your life look like, as far as how you feel on the inside? Do you feel more free? Are you happier? What is the difference?
That is the best question I have ever been asked by an interviewer. Seriously, about all this. That's a really good thing that anybody thinking about this should be aware of. Well, the hard fact that I've learned about myself from all of this is that I don't work well with other people. I really don't. I am an entrepreneur at heart, and I always have been. And for most of my career as a journalist, I worked for other people. I had news directors, and I had city editors and news editors who were always telling me to do this or do that. And it was fine. I loved my job. But I was never 100% happy in all those jobs because I was always sort of guessing my bosses. And I had one news director. I won 22 Emmys as a television journalist, and I had one news director who I really liked. Who says, you're a really hard person to manage. And I said, why? She says, you're really good. You deliver everything right. You're an excellent reporter. We win awards. We love you dearly, but you're really hard to manage because you always have your own ideas. And she was right. I realized that when I finally came loose and run my own business. I am a hard person to manage. I wake up every morning so excited. And this is so different than when I was a journalist. I mean, I loved my job. I really did. I don't mean to knock that at all. But being in control of my life and the stories that I'm going to do and the podcast I'm going to do, the people I'm going to interview, the places we want to go, making my own decisions, working with my own team, directing that team, finding success in some stuff and then learning from our mistakes and abandoning one little idea and moving to another one and learning. That's what I was made to do, to start new businesses. I think we're going to start a new blog, a second blog in the next year. If you are an entrepreneur, don't waste time working for other people. That's all. That's my. And it means it's going to be a tough slog those first few years, maybe. But you know that you're an entrepreneur if you find it hard to work for other people and know that you have a better idea. Now, it might not be really a better idea, but it's the way you work internally. And that's what I learned about myself through all that. So the before was I worked for other people. I could have great ideas. I could get them to agree to certain projects and stuff. But now, every day is an adventure. And I can go wherever I want to go, stop when I want to stop. I work all the time. But, in this world we live in now with technology, you can work from anywhere. And we do. But the before part is just so much more fulfilling. Or the after part is so much more fulfilling. I mean, literally, I don't know how many people can say they wake up every day. Sometimes I lie in bed, realize it's too early to get up. I got to wait, and to be excited about every single day. That's the after.
Mm-hmm. That's the dream. Seriously, that's beautiful. This is one thing I think that most people they're looking for if they're starting their own business, their own channel, whatever it is. Because what you said about you were an excellent employee, you were a great journalist winning awards, but there was still, like, your manager was almost annoyed by you having these ideas. And it's like, it can kind of hold you back, or there's a certain amount of friction, I think, that can come with somebody who has a lot of creativity, but they work for somebody else, because you always have to fit yourself into a certain mold. Even if it works pretty well for you, there's still a certain amount of friction that you have to deal with. Whereas when you work for yourself, you can kind of flow with who you are. And, it's easy to romanticize what that means, but once it starts working, and you have your process down like you do, that's freedom. It's that really is the dream.
Well,
Um,
before
yeah.
I was a cog in the wheel, and it was a great wheel. I love the wheel, but those who were managing me had to think about all the other cogs that they had, and they had a goal that necessarily wasn't my goal. My goal was my little cog that I was in, and they had the big picture. Now it's my wheel, and I mean that makes it, and I can put my own cogs wherever I want, and concentrate on whatever part I want, and look at the whole, and manage it and direct it, and watch it go. And not everybody's like that, you know. That's a personality trait, but uh, I like to think of myself now. If I had to define what I am, it's a serial entrepreneur. I keep reinventing myself, and for the last 10 years now, this has been the RV lifestyle, and it's really been just a wonderful ride, literally and figuratively, as we've gone across the country.
Right. So you mentioned you want to start a new blog. Can you tell us about that? Like, what is your next project?
Uh, well, I can just in broad overstrokes. It's sort of related, but I think it's going to focus more on travel and technology together. And you know, instead of just RVs and camping, you know, it can be, for example, you know, a great example is the video I'm going to do this week, the week that we're recording this podcast, and that is we travel with our dog. About 80% of RVers travel with a dog, so our dog is a big part of our channel, and so people know him. He gets recognized. It's ridiculous, but we have recently bought RV property in Tennessee, and we have some in Michigan, and it's multi-acre stuff. And you want to let your dog run free in your own property, but you know you don't want them going too far. So there's this. You've heard of invisible fence. If you have a dog, you know what that is—a wire in the ground. That's one way, and it gives him a little shock or a tone when he gets near that wire. This is a collar that has satellite technology, and you literally draw on a Google map a boundary in that property that you're at, and the collar communicates with satellites and sounds a tone or vibrates when he gets near that boundary. Um, I just thought that's the greatest thing we've had for our dog in all the years we've traveled with him. I have a video on YouTube that's coming out, but that's the type of technology. There's so many products out there like that. And while that will work for our RV channel because we're relating it to that, uh, that's the kind of stuff I think that we're seeing technology make possible for everybody. You can travel with your dog now, and you can set up multiple fences that are based on satellites anywhere in the country. That's pretty cool. So there's so many different aspects of travel technology, from apps that we can share that we have picked up over the years, to experiences, to reviews of certain devices and things that people might want, from Starlink, the satellite system. We've been an early adapter of that, and know quite a bit about how that works and what it doesn't, where it doesn't work. And we just think it's a great enough related topic that will help us link from our main blog and vice versa, and help with the authority of it. And that there's so much interest in travel technology that we're going to focus in on that. And from
Hmm.
that may come yet another YouTube channel. So we'll see how well the blog does once we launch it, and then we'll see what happens with YouTube afterwards.
Something tells me it will go well. I feel like there's a good amount of overlap between what you're doing right now and that. Also, I think that interests a lot of people in general. Of like, how could I be productive on the road, like seeing the world? I mean, it's something I've thought about for sure. Even like hosting this podcast, I feel like I need to be here with a high quality microphone and blah blah blah. But I'm sure there's ways to do it on the road. And I just, even for me, I don't have an RV, but that still interests me. So yeah, that sounds really exciting. You're definitely delivering on your serial entrepreneur description. So kudos to you there.
We'll see.
We are close to the end of the hour here. So this is usually the point where I ask, like, just pitch all your social medias, all that good stuff. But I guess, do you have any kind of closing thoughts? Anything just that you felt like you haven't said about what you do, or what your purpose is online, before we head out?
Sure. I suspect that, Grant, a lot of people watching your podcast and listening to your podcast are people who are already dabbling with this. They've all worked on it, and if they're uh, if they're like most beginning creators or intermediate creators, they will quickly come to a place: is this worth it?
Mm.
And so the thing I would just want to do is to encourage them that yes, it is. If you have that sense of work satisfaction that comes from this, don't give up, because it takes, we know how to do it. There is like a formula, it takes a couple of years. You need to bring in some social media. You need to get some more traffic. The most important thing is to create content that gets better every week and that is delivered perfectly punctually. Perfectly punctually. There you go. But on a regular schedule, new content that builds upon itself. Sharpen the saw. Learn about how other creators have been able to build funnels that drive traffic to the channel, and from that channel drive it elsewhere. Diversify. Forget about selling merch. Don't even think about merch until you're well over 100,000 in subscribers, and even then, it's still it takes a lot of time, and it's a fairly minimal return unless you are a hugely popular YouTuber. I mean, I hear so many YouTubers, oh, I got to get my merch down. I got to get the right T-shirts. You're not going to make any money with that, and it's more work than it's worth. Concentrate on your quality and your deliverability on a schedule, and don't give up if this is enjoyable. And on the other hand, to those who say, I'm not making any money yet, this is crazy, maybe it's not for you, because if money is your main goal, there are probably easier ways to make it than being a YouTube creator. And
Mm-hmm.
that's hard to say, because so many of us have sort of have been over glamorized in the success. It takes work, and it takes several years to start to see anything. So I don't know if that helps with, if that's your audience or not, but
Oh,
I would
definitely.
suspect that people who are interested in what we're talking about are saying, yeah. How long does this take? It takes years, sometimes a little
Yeah,
less, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it can be kind of wonky with that. Like, with my channel, Tree Skull, it's a video game channel. Started it in 2014. The first 3 months, nobody cared. We had like 37 subscribers. Most of them were just my friends and our friends. And then we totally shifted, turned to like kind of scripted, comedic, informative content, highly edited. Then it started really blowing up pretty quickly. I think within a year of that, we hit 100,000 subscribers. But even then, we had a team of 4 people that was making these videos, and it was very hard to monetize. So like, I could have made way more money working a normal job, even at the peak of the channel. Like, it just it if money was my goal, I would not have succeeded at my goal compared to just working a more regular, steady job using my computer science degree. So I completely agree. Like, your goal should just be wanting to share something, a story, your perspective. Maybe there's just a creative spark in you that you feel like you have to kind of let out. That is the best way, in my opinion, to succeed. Is just kind of eventually, like, even the 3 months where nobody cared, that was kind of the buildup, right? And it would have been easy to just give up. But I remember having a conversation with our team, and we were like, "Yeah, we're willing to do this for years." Before seeing any real payoff, and then lo and behold, eventually, if that's your mindset, it will work.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Because there are easier ways to make money, but I don't think there's more fulfilling ways than this. And you are either a creator, entrepreneur, or you're not. And sometimes it takes a while at this to realize I'm not, or yeah, I am. And then it's just a matter of hanging in there, and it will work. as you've learned and as you just shared. So I appreciate hearing your story a little bit here too.
Hmm.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's been a really good conversation.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming. This podcast wouldn't be what it is, like if people like you weren't willing to kind of open up about these things. And I always love talking to people. I really like your perspective. I feel you were able to pivot from journalism to this really well. It kind of makes sense. The connection makes sense to me. So thanks for joining me. I definitely learned a thing or two or three. And with that, why don't you tell people kind of where they can find you, your social media handles, or whatever.
Sure. The blog is rvlifestyle.com, and the YouTube channel is RV Lifestyle, the YouTube RV Lifestyle channel. And Facebook, it's the RV Lifestyle group. So you'll find us on all of those. But the blog will get you to all of them. And the podcast is not a very original name, but it's the RV Podcast. So that's where you'll find us.
Mm-hmm. Consistent branding. I like it. Makes sense to me. There you have it, everybody. RV Lifestyle. Great channel. Go check them out. You will not be disappointed. I will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.